metrics and measurement. It's a topic which I know has been of interest to a lot of people. We've been talking in our breakfasts in previous weeks about data and technology and the impact that's having on the way that we do business, particularly in this new operating environment. And many of the conversations have touched on this issue exactly around how data can be better used to make smarter decisions at this particular moment in time. So what we wanted to do was to give a bit of a flavour in the next 30 minutes around how data and information can be used to, I suppose, kind of make better sense of what we do within marketing and business development, and also to understand how that contributes to the overall success of our firms at this particular moment in time. So I've got a great panel who are going to be helping me to share some wisdom on those fronts. But to kick things off, we've got Helen Trudgeon, who heads up marketing and business development at Meridian West. Many of you will know. And Helen, you're going to just give us a little bit of a flavour about what we mean when we talk about metrics and measurement to start things off.
Right. So in terms of metrics and KPIs in professional services firms, we are increasingly seeing a move from delivery metrics that we use to measure the performance of our specific marketing activities, more towards value metrics, where we're tracking marketing and business development activity to measure their impact on a firm's strategic goals. This is becoming increasingly important for marketing teams, as we need to understand the key metrics that focus on delivering value to the business's strategic goals within our own organisations. But that's not to say that delivery metrics aren't still important. I think they strongly are, but it's essential that they're used within the broader context of value and business development activity. So the next slide, just a couple of examples on both sides of the delivery metrics, which I think still remain key, where delivery metrics can drive deeper understanding and are used within the wider context. So, for example, the Net Promoter Score, which is widely used in client satisfaction, is still important as a way of gauging how you are engaging with your own clients and measuring areas like sales leads and event attendance. And even the performance analytics of your social media and websites still remain important. But again, it's essential to remember that they don't work within a vacuum and that you do need to continue to evaluate those within the wider context. The value metrics should also be employed to bring in a greater understanding to the wider business performance. I'm not going to dwell on these, as I know we're going to go into a little more detail further on, but they are important to place what you're doing within marketing within the wider business context of your marketing business development activity goals, particularly around areas like profitability, return on investment of what you're doing within marketing and business development, what your client lifetime values are, and areas such as revenue generation and whether you're retaining your clients. At the beginning of the year, before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, we again carried out our PM Forum's annual benchmark survey of marketing leaders within professional firms. So I think there's about 60 to 100 responses to that. And one of the questions we asked is which KPI are they measuring today? And interestingly, the majority of firms are already measuring the delivery metrics quite highly, 65% measuring client retention rates, 77% on pitch conversion rates. But interestingly, I think at the bottom, you've got marketing and BD efficiency and what fee generations by our spent, and that was sitting at 17%. And I think that, and areas, I think another interesting statistic on this slide is the revenue at risk of defection at 36%. And I think both of those stats and figures are going to become much more important in the wake of COVID-19 as firms are beginning to look at the impact of that on their businesses and on their bottom line. And just to finish off, the final slide, as we are increasingly measuring and collecting data on our clients and performance activities within firms, it's becoming, we're seeing an increasing use in data visualization tools to deliver a snapshot of the metrics for partners and fee earners, so that you're looking at one slide where they can easily see what data is being collected and get a snapshot of their business performance. This is our own client insight platform, which brings together both delivery and value metrics from across the firm within a single dashboard, alongside wider client and financial data. And that makes it far easier for firms to interpret the overall strategic performance.
Fantastic. Thank you, Helen. And stay with us. What I want to do now is bring into the conversation our three expert panelists for today. Really pleased to be joined by Freddie Hospedales, who's Global Head of, let me get this right, Global Head of Marketing at ERM. We've also got Sarah Donnelly, who's Marketing Communications Director at Blick, Rothenberg, and Andy Knox, who advises firms on strategy, technology, and client development. He's had a range of strategic senior roles, including most recently at Freshfields and Man Group as well. Maybe, Freddie, if I could start with you. Helen there was painting a picture of this idea of delivery and value metrics. I wonder if that's something that resonates with you and how that plays out at ERM.
Thanks very much, Alastair, and good morning, everyone. Definitely plays a very big part in what we do. One of the challenges is that with delivery metrics and value metrics is that we're always trying to justify our existence and trying to show value and the value of marketing to the leadership. And one of the things I talk about quite a lot is how do the KPIs we use align to the strategy of the firm? Because in some ways, trying to show the leadership the value is no point in talking about, number of clicks, et cetera, unless you can actually translate that into how it applies to the strategy of the firm. A really simple example, we have like many people, a key account strategy and a very finite number of key accounts. And one of our commercial goals is to reduce the tail in the number of people we're trying to talk to, because there are some people we don't want to have on our client list because they're just not very profitable. And our mailing KPIs are all about demonstrating how we're reducing the tail. So we're reducing the number of targeting, et cetera, and the open click rates and all those kinds of things apply to, and hard bounces all apply to the goal of reducing the tail. So it's more about alignment of metrics to the commercial strategy and how that works. I think the other thing that is important is that the leadership of the firm, if they're trying to judge the value of what marketing is doing, actually understand the language that is used. We're happy to use things like hard bounces and click rates, et cetera, and to most of the leadership of the firm and most of the partners, that doesn't mean anything. So part of it is actually translating nice marketing language into the commercial language that they understand and can use in the business. So I think this whole point about delivery metrics and value metrics is very important, but I think it always comes back to how does it play into and justify your existence in addressing the strategy.
So given that, and you've talked about obviously those kind of key account metrics or measurements. I mean, what else do you look at? You talked there about being able to prove the worth of you and your team to the rest of the business. What numbers do you put around that to make your case?
One of the things is because in professional services marketing, you don't own the relationship with the customer. Unlike, say, if you worked at a Lexus or an M&S, all those kind of things, you have all that data. Is that how do you translate what you do into opportunities created? It's a really simple one. The translation of that into actual sales is that it requires other people, but the control of opportunities created from, say, an event is something in a very simple way you could turn around and say, we did this, it generated this, because that's always the question in a really short-term basis. Those kinds of numbers on certain things, and I think it's working out what are the KPIs for a particular activity and also how that applies, can then be used. So it's going to sound a bit strange. In different parts of the world, we use different KPIs for different things, for different people, because of the commercial strategies in different parts of different regions. But my main point is really about looking at understanding the commercial strategy, understanding the business strategy, and what are the KPIs the leadership will understand and use that demonstrates how the dollars are being spent. Sorry, how the pounds are being spent. Wrong country. In that side of things.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, I wonder, just to come to you next, because I know you've had experience in a similar industry that Freddie's in now, and you've moved, recently, the last 6 months or so, to the accounting profession. What have you seen that's been most effective in your various roles?
I think I mean, I think different parts of professional services are further ahead than others, maybe in terms of being able to measure these things, and a lot of that can be around maturity of the business in terms of how mature they are with their marketing and business development functions. How, you know, and within that, things like, do they have a key account management program or account-based marketing, whichever you want to call it? Do they have you know, really good business development and marketing connection? So I think those things affect it, but it also can affect from industry. And the reason for that, I think, is because, you know, when I worked at somewhere like Arcadis, who in some ways, in part of their business was a competitor of ERM, I think, you know, it's quite measurable in some ways. Things like if you're looking at environmental risk and you're looking at, for example, we did a big campaign around freight railway in the US, and the number of accidents that had happened and spillages, and what did that mean to the environment around where these spillages happened, how quickly were they cleaned up and things like that. And that gives some really good metrics very quickly to talk to clients about, this is how effective our business can be to support you and communities. And that supported the passion of the business, which was improving quality of life. If I look at coming into Blick Rothenberg, you know, we're much further behind that, but also accountants, you know, it's less easy to measure exactly what they do. They're not going to go out and go, well, the average cost of an audit is X and we cost Y. They're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. That's not our brand. That's not what we want to do. And actually, it doesn't help anybody in the industry. So it's an opportunity, though, to really help them focus on the client issues and look at where we can get data that supports those client issues and talk to those. And then that helps support the strategy, which is, you know, raising our brand profile, which is about achieving organic growth and working with clients to cross-sell services. And a big part of that is because, you know, we're now getting groups to work together on campaigns where we're pulling research together and we're getting data that supports that campaign, but gives some really good KPIs around it. So they are around you know, conversion and revenue and retaining clients and growing clients as much as they are about those delivery metrics. So I think it would be, I can understand it's very easy for some people on this call to feel disheartened, thinking my business isn't quite there yet, or I don't have access to that data. I think I would echo what Freddie said about, you know, tailor it to your business, tailor it to your circumstance and your event or your activity that you're doing, but really try and be a bit more creative. And I agree about, you know, speaking their language, because if you start talking about hard bounces and impressions, they just glaze over because they've no idea what you're talking about.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I would guess, as a kind of bit of a cliche maybe, but you may think that accountants are very number savvy. You know, they like to see figures, they like to see data. You know, but I guess it's, from what you're saying is, you know, you still think there's kind of room to do more there, or there's room for more kind of education, if you like.
Yeah, because you know, they like numbers, but they have to mean something to them, and you know, they have to have a context, and I think it's a very important point that you make. And one of the reasons I love working in professional services is that I love the way different minds work. So if I'm dealing with an environmental scientist, or I'm dealing with an architect, or I'm dealing with a lawyer, or I'm dealing with an accountant, they all think very differently. Some think in numbers and some think more visually. And that's an important point to also help people, is think about your audience and how you best present that data to them. Because, you know, accountants will love a dashboard like Helen just showed. They'll love seeing the data presented visually, but they like to see the actual numbers behind it. They'll want that background. But if you're working with lawyers, they want the conversation, they want the words, they want to talk about it, you know. So just think about your audience as well and how you present that data, but it has to have some context, or it doesn't mean anything to them.
And Nandi, I saw you nodding throughout what Sarah and Freddie were saying. I know you've had experience working with lawyers, you know, and you yourself were one as well. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so I mean, just picking up on some of the things Freddie and Sarah said. Look, I think professional services marketing is actually really very hard, and the basic, you know, I tend to work across other sectors as well, and the key difference to, say, something like asset management, where sales and investment management is split, is that you get this commingled dynamic in professional services, which makes it really hard for marketing people. So in other words, the person who does the job is primarily responsible for the sale. And so, when I've worked recently with asset managers on the sales side, it's a lot more kind of developed in terms of the systems and the reporting. So that basically the kind of head of sales in a global asset management business will say something like, okay, people, if it's not in CRM, it doesn't exist. And frankly, if you don't make it go in CRM, then that's going to affect your comp. So, and those are the drivers you need to build the behaviors which actually populate CRM. And then, whether it's Salesforce or, in my recent case, it was more Microsoft Dynamics. Off the back of that, you start to cut meaningful data because it's being populated. And because sales own the client relationship and sales and marketing work very closely together, I think that makes it easier and cleaner and just more straightforward to build the systems and be relevant to the business. Obviously that's a slight simplification because investment managers play their part too. If I switch back to professional services, I think there's a lot of really talented marketing people that are often find themselves kind of on the fringes of the conversation. And to Freddie's point, they have to kind of struggle to kind of justify their existence. There's an interesting stat I saw. LexisNexis did a December 29 survey of business services, and it was something like 49% in the States said that their business services efforts were successful. Business services / marketing efforts were successful. Europe and Asia, that was 25%. And I think we're all aware of this kind of standoff often between fee earners and marketing departments in professional services businesses, basically bashing the professional services businesses for perceived lack of efficacy. So I do think it's getting better, because I think what you're seeing in a lot of professional services more generally is increased commoditization, digitization. So there's more data, so there's more measuring. So I think there's an increasing culture of measurement. I think when it comes to marketing specifically, I was always a little bit skeptical of click data, because I think it was very easy for particularly law firms to pump out notes on the kind of issue of the day and then talk about kind of click rates. Whereas I think it's the professional services sell is often, not always, but often much higher touch. So I think, to be positive in COVID, and obviously there's massive pressure on marketing departments through COVID, I think it's all about being relevant to clients. Pitch conversion makes you very relevant if you can play in that space. But I think part of being relevant to clients is about, I think it's really important right now that the conversation you have with clients, you're saying stuff that is relevant to them, and also helps them triangulate where they are in the market, which is why I think some of the client survey stuff around a particular issue, which is really relevant to businesses, which creates benchmarks and peer groups around that's where you can start to trace a closer line between that kind of commentary and insight to conversion.
Freddie, Andy raised an interesting point there about the pressures, particularly at the moment in this environment, and I think that there are obviously pressures to kind of keep clients loyal. Budgets will be kind of under scrutiny. With that in mind, do you think that's going to change the way that you look at measurement? Is it going to bring kind of different things to the fore in the way that you think about how you judge success in this particular time we're going through at the moment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Insofar as we're looking at a number of things at the moment, and I think the first thing is the reduction in the promotional tools you have, for want of a better term. There are no face-to-face events. It's forcing a degree of lack of differentiation in content. Everyone is going on to, so we're on a Teams platform now, which looks like a Zoom platform. So it doesn't matter if you're a KPMG, and I spent 10 years there, or you are a 10-person consultancy, you look in your client experience very, very similar at this point in time. So your content and how you differentiate your content is going to become more and more key. And I think as we come out of this, we will see a different mix of the different weighting of the channels that we use and how we use those. And then the issues around differentiation of content will become more and more important, and how you value that differentiation, or how a client values that differentiation. And when I was at KPMG, we went through the financial crisis, bit of an issue. I was in financial services then, and through that period, it was amazing. Whoever you wanted to speak to, you could speak to, because they needed information. And when we did webinars at that time, everyone was on it. You have 200, 300 people on it, because everyone just needs to hear stuff. And as you come out of it, it's amazing. They become much more selective, and how you measure that selectivity is going to be important. I think coming out of this, people become more discerning about which webinars they're on, how they interact with the client, and how our people interact with the client, and how we measure that in a meaningful way that the firm can use will be very, very important.
And Helen, maybe just to come back to you as well, because I know at the moment, we as a business are going through a process of kind of looking at our data and CRM, and using this moment to kind of refresh some of that. I mean, from what you've seen with some of the new technologies and CRM platforms available, what's your sense around what can be done in that kind of area to kind of help provide better analytics?
I think a lot of us, and us included, obviously we've started up the webinars and tracking those. And I think we've got to be careful of the difference between broadcast and engagement mode. So, for example, obviously the numbers of people we're broadcasting to through our webinars compared to the number of people that we'll get to a roundtable breakfast, for example, is quite a big difference. So the measurement then comes into how we then move that forward as marketers and business development to engage with those people that we are now talking to, that we wouldn't necessarily have been in the past, or in quite such an in-depth way. So I think those are the measurements really that we need to be looking at, is how we can build on those new relationships and develop those new relationships and take those forward in a meaningful way, so that actually we're not able to just say, look, we're talking to 100 or 300 people have signed up for our webinars, but actually what does that mean to us from a business development perspective?
And Sarah, given that, as Freddie was saying, that, possibly the kind of marketing and BD mix of activity has been different over the past couple of months, has that changed the way that you've been measuring or reporting into the business about what you're doing?
Yes, in fact, it's not. It has in terms of us reporting in, but it's also in terms of working together. And I agree with Andy when he says about this kind of challenge between fee earners, sales in certain professional services companies, and marketing. And a big part of that is it's very easy for them to say, well, it's my client, I'm selling, and then not do it, and then hide behind, well, marketing didn't do this. And it's hard for marketing because you don't necessarily get in front of that client always. But what this has done, this situation, is given us an opportunity to work more collaboratively. And I think in any of these circumstances, whether it was the financial crisis, as Freddie mentioned, or whether it's COVID, it's about looking for those opportunities. And so what we have done is really worked with our partners and our fee earning staff to, first of all, when it all started and it was all very raw for everybody, and we knew we had to talk to our clients and talk to the market, we made sure our whole campaign was around practical guidance. We made it really, really simple for clients, to give them this practical guidance to help them and help them feel more secure at a time that was very unnerving. And we made sure that came through all of our content, through all our tone of voice, through all our engagement. And it was authentic because it very much related to the firm's values and how they treat clients, how we treat our clients. And then we've used the time to work closer with the sales staff, the fee earners, to help them understand better what we do, and us understand better what they do. And so we've reported now more together, and that's never happened in Blick Rothenberg before. It hasn't been a joint reporting effort, and we've been able to do that. And so, but also we've worked with them to understand things like Freddie's point about webinars. You know, webinars at the start of this, we got huge numbers. I mean, we had to up our platform, which we'd never had to do before. You know, we'd had quite bespoke small audiences, and we got huge audiences. They've started to tail off. So we had a webinar last week that was a lot smaller in terms of registration and attendance. But we worked with the business to say, okay, let's analyze this a bit. We can see that that's happening in the market generally. So that's okay. That's a trend. But then to Freddie's point from earlier about the tail and about having the right people in that audience, who was on there and were they the right people? And let's look at the value. And we did some comparisons with, you know, earlier in the situation, who was on those and where did we take them? What was the real quality rather than quantity? And what does it look like now? And I think that's where you can start to tailor what you're reporting, and help the partners and the salespeople to report you know, to show, well, this actually has more value. This is a more value metric because it's quality rather than quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And Alastair, it's probably worth adding to that I guess at a macro level, one of the things that's happening at the moment is there's a pretty intense look across firms are doing across sectors, right? What's your retail exposure? What's your airline exposure? How are you restructuring business? Freddie was talking about client relationships. You know, are you going to have to make some difficult decisions about the clients you're going to back, the ones that you're not going to back? And I guess to Sarah's kind of silver lining in all of this in terms of helping that relationship, you could well see kind of more collaboration and I guess the role of marketing kind of be kind of more appreciated that. And I do think actually the real place where marketing departments can add value is in knowing the clients and knowing the sectors in detail. Because if you think about the fee earners, they're incredibly time poor because they're trying to juggle a selling role and an execution role, right? The reality is the execution role dominates their lives. There is an opportunity if the marketing guys can get smart on the clients and smart on the sectors for them to be really valuable.
Yeah, and to that point, I think it's worth really being proactive. Like marketing teams in professional services are proactive at the best of times, but just really ask those questions. You know, get to the bottom of, okay, they're not backing these clients. Why? Have some input and have a voice, and actually that will help you because if you know, in Blick Rothenberg, for example, we work for a lot of entrepreneurial companies. We work for a lot of startups and scale ups. And if we're saying, well, this was really important to us 3 months ago, this set of clients, but it's not so much now, ask why. Find out, because then you can put more value around your data and your KPIs.
Yeah, I think it's really important to add insight and opinion as opposed to just ram out data at people. You know, marketing has to have value, and that value has to be because it's based on insight and opinion and things they wouldn't have heard before. Those aha moments, those kind of, you know, those moments that give them the thought of, I haven't thought about that. Let's do that. Let's do this. Those are the kind of things that will give marketing a slightly elevated position that has generally speaking professional services. Just
picking up on what we've just been saying, I guess, about using this moment as a bit of a step change in the way that Sarah was talking about more collaboration across the firm. I mean, Andy, do you think that's you know, are you kind of optimistic about that? Because you know, you were talking about some of the big barriers before. Are those kind of fundamental, or is actually COVID going to kind of change the way that you know, we think about all of the kind of you know, data analytics reporting that we've just been talking about?
It's a really tricky one, isn't it? I mean, because I think that, you know, you could credibly put forward a view that you know, law firms are looking at their bottom line and they're looking to retrench, and marketing is still probably perceived as a support area, and you could see a natural fee and a reaction wanting to go, well, I own the client relationship, I can stay relevant to the client, you know, it's all about a bilateral conversation, etc., etc. I mean, I think the counter would be that's short-termist, and right now is where you need some expert insight from the side on you know, how you can kind of play your client base and play your client sectors. But I do think, you know, to the early discussion, the marketing guys need to step up and demonstrate the value, because everyone's value is being tested. Fee earners, partners, everyone's going to be under pressure. But that said, the conversations I have with some of my partner friends in law firms, it's a very mixed picture, and some of them are busy. The beauty about advisory businesses is, are you advising on the kind of reconstruction or the kind of insolvency areas or the kind of restructures and workarounds? Is private equity going to kick in? There's massive amounts of dry powder. So it's quite interesting to understand whether, for all the kind of gloom, whether actually there could be some interesting revenue opportunities around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And Freddie, would you say you're optimistic given where we are at this point in time?
Optimistic. It's the next 3 months, 6 months will be it's a bit of an unknown picture, and again globally it's very different depending where you are in the world. I think in this part of the world, we are quite optimistic. I think from our business, because we're involved in sustainability quite strongly, and most industries are looking to build back better and build back greener. We have a distinct advantage in that regard, and that goes across many sectors, whether that be oil and gas all the way through to technology. They all have the same ambition. If this is a pause in their history, what do they want to be going forward? So from a personal point of view, from an organisational point of view, I think it's a great opportunity for ERM. I think for professional services, those businesses that have got a counter-cyclical model will do better. And I think bringing that back down to some marketing, I think those marketing functions that have a degree of maturity, and are looking at things and using data in the right ways and are aligned to the strategy. So to Andy's point, demonstrating a value that is tangible means that they will be in a good position going forward. But there is the next 3 to 6 months is going to be an interesting ride, I would argue.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And Sarah, I might come to you for the final word today. I mean, given everything we've talked about this morning, what would you say, kind of top tip, if you like, for people on the call today, kind of thinking about, how to prove the value of the work that they're doing for the next, couple of months, given all the scrutiny that's going to be, what would be your top tip?
I would say don't be defensive. Be collaborative. Be positive, and really highlight. Don't be afraid to highlight where you and your team are adding value, and constantly think about what you're doing individually to add value, and what your team are doing, and how you present that to the business, and whatever that data looks like. Just keep showing the value and be really positive with the business, and marketing teams in professional services have a habit of saying where it didn't quite go right. Don't do that. Talk about where it really went right, and really highlight what you're doing. And I think that's the main thing. And also, keep in mind, we're in a different world to the financial crisis, because back then I remember thinking, oh God, marketing's the first to go. And now I don't. I think that Andy and Freddie have made good points, that if you can show the value of what you're doing, and you can show that it's very short-term thinking to cut your marketing team or to sideline them, then actually you're still saying, look, we're here and we're really important to the organisation. So be really positive.
Fantastic, and great to end on a positive note. I think that's kind of sage advice there for everyone to take away.